Today we join people all over in celebrating World Day for Audiovisual Heritage. The observation increases awareness for the protection and preservation of our shared cultural knowledge in the forms of films, radio and television programs. At home, the Jamaica Archives and Records Department is charged with the responsibility of safeguarding and showcasing our audiovisual cultural heritage. For more information on JARD's catalogue, call 968-4800 or 926-7995. It's your show, Jamaica Magazine. So let's get into it with a word of advice, followed by the news.
Government health centers and hospitals have an adequate supply of paracetamols like Panadol and Cetamol to treat the chikungunya virus. Paracetamol in the public health sector is free of cost. For more on chikungunya and the medication, call the Ministry of Health toll-free at 1-888-1-LOVE. That's 1-888-663-5683. Mondays to Fridays, 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. A message from the Ministry of Health. Good day, I'm Andrea Chisholm and this is your JIS News for Monday, October 27. Jamaica is putting measures in place to withstand financial shocks from any possible changes to the Petrocaribe agreement with Venezuela. Financial Secretary Devon Rowe says he expects Jamaica's relationship with Venezuela to continue, but said if the terms and conditions of the Petrocaribe agreement were to change, the government would be able to respond.
We are building our reserves in a way to compensate for any potential occurrence. In addition as well to, we have been broadening the arrangements for repayment to Venezuela through the provision of goods. So far we have arranged a clinker deal which allows us to repay Venezuela in kind and not cash.
Mr. Rowe was speaking at a press conference following the 2014 High-Level Caribbean Forum hosted by the IMF and the Ministry of Finance in Montego Bay last week. He added that the government had been broadening the country's energy base to reduce Jamaica's reliance on oil. Under the Petrocaribe agreement, Jamaica pays Venezuela upfront for 60% of the cost of the oil it receives from the country. The other 40% is payable over 25 years at an interest rate of 1% per annum. Caribbean countries, meanwhile, have agreed on a plan of action to deal with issues relating to energy as well as taxation and growth. This follows last week's forum in Montego Bay. Finance Minister Dr. Peter Phillips said regional countries would continue to put measures in place to develop the small business sector while working together to ensure the sustainability of the energy sector to include renewable energy sources.
And a review of the distribution of benefits within the regional framework is one of the things. But all told, I think that what we're seeing is a closer meeting of the minds between the international financial community and the Caribbean countries generally about a way forward for the Caribbean.
Dr. Phillips added that the Caribbean would also work with the international community to boost its capacity to deal with changes in the global environment. The Tourism Ministry is working hard to complete works on the Promenade and Main Street in Ocho Rios, having recently finished the multi-million-dollar renovation of the town's cruise ship terminal. Rehabilitation of the facility included the upgrading and expansion of the parking area and the renovation of the terminal building. It forms part of the broader $400 million Ocho Rios improvement project initiated last year by the ministry with the funding from the Tourism Enhancement Fund. The goal is to enhance the appeal of the resort town. Fisherfolk are being urged to use the correct sized mesh wire in making their fish pots in order to avoid prosecution. That urging came recently from the Portfolio State Minister Luther Buchanan as fisherfolk in Belmont, Westmoreland received 50 rolls of 1.5-inch mesh wire.
Let me remind you that the use of any other size mesh apart from the 1.5-inch mesh that you will receive today will result in illegal activities, and the Marine Warden Police will be vigilant in confiscating unregulated fish traps. And there is a fine. And we are getting to the point where we don't want to fine people. We want our fisher folks to conform to the law, which in turn will enhance the fishing industry.
Funding for the mesh was provided by a CaribSafe partnership at a cost of $5 million. It's part of a $9 million 3-year project covering the period 2013 to 2015. And finally, Education Minister Reverend Ronald Thwaites has lauded the nation's teachers for their contribution to the development of Jamaica's students in the vocational and technical areas. The minister was speaking recently at a World Teachers' Day Forum for Innovation in Teaching. It featured various exhibitions and innovations created by teachers and students from across the island.
What is being exhibited shows our teachers as team builders and innovators. We encourage teachers then to continue to make the development of practical skills as important as knowledge and to encourage critical thinking. In the 21st century, this is what we desire if we are to equip our children to break the poverty cycle.
And that's it for GIS News today. I'm Andrea Chisholm. Thank you for watching.
The Ebola virus is transmitted through direct contact with an infected person's blood or other bodily fluids like saliva, urine, stool, and semen. Symptoms of Ebola include sudden fever, intense weakness, muscle pain, headache, and sore throat. This may be followed by vomiting, diarrhea, and rash, and in some cases both internal and external bleeding, leading to death. Protect yourself. Avoid travel to Ebola-affected countries. Avoid contact with infected persons. Don't touch the body of someone who has died from Ebola. Wash hands frequently with soap and water and use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. To know more, call 1-888-663-5683.
From addressing last week's IMF High-Level Forum on the Caribbean in Montego Bay to breaking ground for a 160,000 square foot warehouse at Kingston Wharves, Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller and her team made some strategic moves to catapult the country forward. Those and other game-changing assignments are next in Jamaica House Weekly.
In pursuit of sustained growth with job creation, ground broken for supply chain management and manufacturing facility, and join our Chick-V and Ebola public education campaign. I'm Simone Wolf with Jamaica House Weekly. Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller officially opened and participated in a high-level Caribbean forum organized by the International Monetary Fund and the Ministry of Finance last week. Representatives from the IMF and other multilateral agencies, as well as regional leaders, spent 2 days discussing ways of unlocking economic growth in the Caribbean. Special attention was paid to energy, tax regimes for investment, and financial sector resilience. In her address, Mrs. Simpson Miller cautioned that only sustained growth would significantly lift the standard of living within the region.
Without jobs and successful business ownership, our people will have no hope.
As such, she said her administration was determined to encourage the rise of a new business class in Jamaica.
Achieving appreciable, sustainable, and equitable economic growth in Jamaica, coupled with job creation, must be the prize for the extreme sacrifices our people have been making in our efforts to put our economy on the right track once and for all. The government sees this launch as a step forward for Kingston Wharves Limited, a big step forward for the development of the logistics hub.
Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller was speaking last Wednesday at the groundbreaking ceremony for the construction of the total logistics facility at Newport West in Kingston. The 160,000 square foot warehouse is to be operated as a 24-hour facility offering supply chain management and manufacturing. With construction to begin next month, about 500 Jamaicans are expected to be employed when the facility opens in January 2016. In more somber news, Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller expressed deep sympathies this weekend to the family and friends of Jamaica Chamber of Commerce President Francis Kennedy. 74-year-old Kennedy passed away Sunday in the American state of Florida from heart failure. In a statement, Mrs. Simpson Miller said the island had lost a giant in the field of commerce and business. On Heroes Day 2014, Francis Kennedy was awarded the Order of Distinction Commander Class for his contribution to business. It was collected on his behalf by his wife Marjorie. Minister responsible for information, Senator Sandra Faulkner, last week called on the advertising and media sectors to join government's public education campaign for chikungunya and Ebola.
By applying your creative talents to craft messages with impact, you can help build the public awareness that is necessary to contain the CHIKV and prevent the entry of the Ebola virus to our shores. Our campaign can benefit significantly from your message design skills and creativity.
The minister was speaking at the Advertising Agencies Association of Jamaica's annual media luncheon. She used the occasion to laud the island's advertising sector for its adherence to a high standard of ethics in the promotion of business, goods and services. On Sunday, Minister Faulkner joined the Caribbean Institute of Media and Communications, CARMAC, in their celebration of 40 years of training quality media practitioners. The minister, who's a CARMAC alum, said the regional institution had played a powerful role in developing the media and communications industry. And the information minister spent some time with another institution last week. This time she shared some words of encouragement with students of the Northern Caribbean University.
I am here to tell you this afternoon to believe in yourself. Do not listen to the voices of despair and gloom. What if our Prime Minister listened to those who told her she was not good enough? What if she listened to those who tried to destroy her dreams and aspirations? Her story of perseverance, hard work, and integrity can be an inspiration to those of you who, for one reason or another, would dare to think otherwise. You can accomplish what you will.
730 students were honored at the university's 2014 Honors Convocation on October 23. And finally, Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller recently welcomed British businessman Sir John Beckwith to Jamaica House. Sir John was on a 5-day visit to the island, during which he launched Youth Sport Trust Jamaica. The leadership project assists PE teachers, coaches, community sports leaders and young leaders to develop themselves. The trust expects to reach 250,000 young Jamaicans by 2017. Mrs. Simpson Miller thanked Sir Beckwith for choosing Jamaica and encouraged him to invest in other areas of sport on the island. And that's it for Jamaica House Weekly. Join us next time for more of the stories coming out of the office of the Prime Minister.
Welcome to the FSC Minute. I am Nadine Newsome. Today we discuss the importance of retirement planning, and joining me is Nicolette Hennes, Senior Director of Pensions with the FSC. Welcome to the FSC Minute, Mrs. Hennes.
Thanks, Nadine.
Mrs. Hennes, why is the FSC concerned about the low pension coverage in Jamaica?
Well, Nadine, as at March 31st, 2014, 8.9% of the employed labor force contributed to a private pension fund. Another 5 to 6% receive a pension from the government. These statistics imply that as many as 85% of the labor force have not made formal arrangements for retirement. Reliance, therefore, has to be placed on intermittent sources of revenue, such as remittances from abroad or savings that have accumulated over that person's lifetime. This makes the senior years extremely challenging and a time for marginal existence for many people.
And what can happen to persons who have not adequately prepared for retirement?
Well, due to the improvement in environmental hygiene, sanitation, and medical technology, persons are living significantly longer. Treatments now exist that can reduce the impact of major illnesses that 30 years ago would have meant a sure death sentence. Jamaicans have access to prescription drugs through National Health Fund and Jamaica Drug for the Elderly programs. Therefore, their lives are being prolonged, and a person could retire at 60 years and live until 90 years old. During that 30-year period, however, with increased costs and inflation, that pensioner can be seriously impoverished. Longevity, in the absence of consistent and formal savings, can see Jamaicans outliving their savings.
Thank you, Mrs. Hennes. My guest today was Nicolette Hennes, Senior Director of Pensions with the FSC. For the FSC Minute, I am Nadine Newsom.
The next few days are being observed as Fire Safety Awareness Week, and so we here at the JIS are encouraging you to support fire prevention measures in your communities. To help your efforts, hear more from the Jamaica Fire Brigade.
When your clothes is on fire, you do not run. So you stop where you are, you fall to the ground, and you roll.
Public education is a key component in fire prevention. It is a proactive method of reducing emergencies and the damage caused by them by ensuring that the public is fully aware of what to do in case of an emergency.
We recognize that fires start most of the time because people don't know about fires. People don't know what it takes to make a fire. People don't know what it takes to get rid of a fire. Without educating a person about the dangers of fire, then they would be totally lost, and we will continue to have devastating fires destroying life and property.
Look around for me. Make sure that everybody in the class is here.
I think you should give yourselves a clap. That's how we want you to operate when there is a fire, all right?
Fire prevention officers go into communities, businesses, schools, churches, wherever they are granted access, and educate the public on fire safety practices. And through programs like Safety Monitor and Training, persons are taught to educate others about appropriate fire safety behavior.
We go into communities, we train what we call community safety wardens or fire wardens. So they would now look at the mispractices. We go into businesses, organize the staff, and we train persons to train the people in the workplace. They are also trained to a point where they can check for hazards, to ensure that all the fire hazards that are visible can be reduced.
If it is that you require of us or you ask of us to come into your home and show you what inside there can actually start a fire and how you can prevent that fire, we actually do that. And we promote as well what we call the good neighbor policy. So you ensure that your neighbor is not doing anything that will put your life in jeopardy from a fire, and you do the same as well for your neighbors.
What happens?
Fire prevention does not stop at public education. There is also engineering and enforcement. You could call it the triple E effect. Engineering and enforcement go hand in hand. It's at this stage that the Fire Prevention Division review building plans, inspect buildings, and assess for compliance.
We encourage you to come into us, submit your building plan. We are able to look at it to see how you are going to occupy the building, and then we would be able to recommend the type of devices that you would use to better protect your property and the lives that will occupy that building.
Fire prevention officers should be contacted to conduct fire safety inspection as soon as new buildings are erected or existing buildings are being renovated. There is no cost attached.
So you would write us a letter and you can send it in to us by email. When we get that letter, we set a date with you. We come into your building and we look at everywhere. All of the occupied space, whether doors are locked off, technical room, we start from the roof all the way down to basement level if there's a basement, and we note everything in terms of what you have in the building, what you need to do, and then we would go back, make recommendations. So once you implement those recommendations, then you know that you are on the right track to have a safe building, a fire-safe building to occupy.
Once the inspection is complete and your building meets the required standard, you will receive a building occupancy certificate, also known as a fire certificate. The Fire Prevention Division also sees to the retrofitting of fire hydrants.
In 2007, we did a survey. That survey was a bit dismal, to be honest. It showed that we had just about 30% of all fire hydrants across the island working. We hired 2 teams of hydrant maintenance persons, and we placed one in the western section of the island and one in Kingston. In 2012, 5 years after, we did another survey, and that survey is showing us that we now have over 70% of the fire hydrants working. So that is really saying to us that the team that we have employed is actually going out there and doing the job that is required of them.
The fire brigade is on the job to ensure that you are safe in the event of a fire, but they can't go it alone. Your help is needed.
Don't cook and leave it unattended. Don't overload circuits. Don't introduce a whole lot of electrical equipment on systems that are not designed for that heavy load. Don't allow children that are not of the age of 12 and untaught to be fooling around with fire in general, and pretty much ensure that you have a plan in your home, in the building that you occupy. Ensure that the right equipment is there. Our message to the public is prevent, prevent, prevent.
Once a fire starts, you need to call us. It is better for us to get on the scene and realize that you have already dealt with it than for us to get on the scene late. Because nobody likes a situation like that when we get there late and there's nothing much that we can actually do.
For more information on the Jamaica Fire Brigade, visit their website www.jfb.gov.jm or call 922-2523 or 922-0007.
We are men with a message, and the youth them need to hear this.
We know everything about thug life.
Been there, done that.
Prison and a nice place, stay in school.
Serious thing we I tell you. And a joke thing this.
You can't tell me about hungry.
That's no excuse. Leave the badness alone.
Nobody narrate you.
Them just afraid of you. Live positive, remember. A gang is a dead end.
A message from the Ministry of National Security.
This week also holds great significance to another group of Jamaicans, those involved in and impacted by correctional services. This year's observance is being organized around rehabilitation by inspiring hope through empowerment. One such way is the promotion of art and craft in the island's correctional facilities.
Every day I rise on a prayer.
With our prison, unfortunate. But prison are not hell, and the last part of the world. So we're glad for the opportunity where we can come on here and do something and go back out there.
And that's exactly what some inmates at 2 of the island's adult correctional facilities are doing, making the most of their time, learning a skill and excelling at it. Today on the arts page, we take a look at some of the artisans in the island's penal institutions.
Gonna be free like a bird in the sky. Gonna be free, gonna fly so high. I was born
Instead of giving them a fish, you teach them to fish so that they can go back out in the wider society as better persons.
The Department of Correctional Services offers several self-improvement programs intended to change behaviors and teach skills. Art and craft is one of the many self-empowering methods being used by the department to reform the lives of those on lockdown.
On a daily basis they work, Monday through Friday. On weekends they might do things in their cells, but weekdays they work in the different areas.
These are self-taught crafts. We have matchstick work, and we have soap work, we have paintings.
The men on the inside have attested to the life-changing power of art and craft.
It helped me to calm myself, to see things differently, to be a better person.
I'm glad for the opportunity where we can come to prison, we can do something, because when I out there, I never know if I know nothing at all.
It helped me a lot to keep my brain more relaxable, keep me away from trouble and things. It was useful enough for, since I come here, I get to learn about the matchstick work and carving work and them things there.
The rehab program has helped me tremendously in a positive way, meaning that when I'm free, I'll be able to help myself in a more productive way and be a more upstanding citizen in society.
I've got to get myself together.
It helps to relieve my mind from the pressures of the sentence, because not just in prison, but wherever a man is, as long as he occupies his mind with something productive, then there'll be less stress to deal with. And that's where my rehabilitation has been working.
It enhanced me, it let me feel confident in myself, because I came here without a skill, and presently I have a skill now and I feel happy about myself.
It helps a lot of us, because if you sit down and build something like this, and even that over there is a fish and a stand, you get out of trouble and involved in bad activity.
Not only are the art and craft works donated and given as gifts to family members and visitors, they are also sold and the proceeds given to the inmates.
Persons on the outside who are not aware of what happens in the institution feels that it is a waste of time. But we have inmates who genuinely, when they enter the institution, behavior change takes place.
So the next time you see a work of art, it just might be from one of the many talented artisans in the island's correctional institutions.
But I got to pick myself up, dust myself off, start all over.
And that's our show. Have comments or queries, email jamaicamagazine@jis.gov.jm. If you prefer to browse, visit our Facebook, YouTube and Twitter pages for up-to-date information on government policies and programs geared towards improving your lives. You may also visit jis.gov.jm for all the positive and promising developments coming out of Jamaica land we love. On behalf of the entire team here at the JIS, I'm Arroyo Eubanks. Have a great day.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.